Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and about a week ago I did my first look at the new Sigma 50 to 100 millimeter f1.8 DC HSM, and that's from their art series. Now the DC in that name indicates that it's for crop sensor cameras, APS-C, DX format, however you want to label it. And so it's been somewhat unusual for me that as soon as I did my first look, I began to get a barrage of people that were asking me, how does it work on a full frame body? Now, before I jump into that at all, let me first say that I would never recommend buying this lens simply to mount on a full frame body. You'd be much better served buying a lens that's designed for full frame coverage. And as you can see, when it comes to the different approaches, here's the new Tamron 85 millimeter f1.8 VC lens. And so at the same aperture equivalent, you can see there's a massive size difference. And so if you want to actually get the full use of the zoom range on this lens and its full value, you really should shoot it on its intended system. That aside, I did do as you asked. And so yes, the lens does physically mount on a full frame body. That's not the problem. And in fact, in some ways, depending on which body that you're using, the lens may balance a little bit better because it is so large and quite front heavy. It may actually balance a little bit better on a larger full frame body. That being said, that obviously this lens was not designed to cover the full frame image circle. And so, for example, if we look at an image taken at 50 millimeters, you can see the very dark black circle around. That's where the limits of the crop sensor circle are and where the full frame coverage begins. And so as you can tell, it's not designed to cover that full frame. And no amount of post-processing is going to restore information into that black area, for the simple fact that there is no information there. It was blocked out because the lens does not cover the image circle of the actual sensor there. So as we advance further into the 70 millimeter range, this is around 72 millimeters, I think you'll be able to see that while there continues to be a very heavy vignette and the absolute black, information forever gone, is much smaller now and only in the kind of extreme corners. And so, of course, you could do some cropping there. In Photoshop, you could do some creative work to fill that information back in, but it really wouldn't be worth the effort, to be honest. As we move up to 80 millimeters plus, though, the situation gets a little bit rosier. Now, while there still is heavy vignette, that absolute loss of information is only in the very extreme corners. And so in some shots, for example, the shot of a cat that's in a dark environment, you can't really tell at all. In a brighter shot like of these spring buds, you can see that in those very corners there is some loss of information. However, you could probably process with that and deal with it. As you move to about 85 millimeters and beyond, however, the lens does start to cover the full frame sensor cover. And so it's not designed for that, so the vignetting is particularly heavy, as you can see. And even all the way up to 100 millimeters, the vignette is still quite heavy. However, at 100 millimeters, I am able to deal with it fairly simply. I took the standard profile out of Lightroom, and on top of that, I've added on some additional manual vignette removal. And so I used a 70 value in Lightroom slider, and then I moved the midpoint out to 19. And with those figures, I feel like I have completely eliminated all of the vignette. So that's within the range of fairly easy post-processing. And as you can see, the image looks very nice. Now, to the good news. The good news is that this lens is so incredibly sharp that it has absolutely no problem transitioning to the more demanding full frame sensor. In fact, it really shines there. The image quality looks fantastic, very sharp. I was also happy to see that I've been pleased with the autofocus on crop sensor bodies. I was pleased to see that it also continued to accurately autofocus on a full frame body. And so sharpness is very, very good. I don't see any other issues brought into the equation, be it chromatic aberrations or anything like that. The lens is so stellar optically that the images are really quite nice. And I was really impressed by the overall look, and there's an amazing amount of resolution in the center of that frame. And so while I would certainly, as I said, never recommend buying this lens to use on a on a full frame body specifically, if you happen, like I do, to own both crop sensor and full frame sensor bodies, I see no reason to, if you wanted to not use it on the full frame body at the longer end of the focal length. Just know that you're going to be using a fairly heavy lens to achieve what's going to boil down to kind of a prime lens use. And so for your primary purpose, you'd be better off just buying a prime lens. That being said, if you've purchased this lens to shoot on crop sensor and you want to throw it on your full frame body sometimes, have at it. It's a gorgeous lens and it works really, really well. And so, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I've got a lot more information coming, including my final review on this lens that I believe is shaping up to be perhaps the best of the art series thus far. I'm really impressed by it, and I'll delve into that in more detail as we go. Sign up for my newsletter also down below, or visit my website so you don't miss out on any of the coverage. I'm Dustin Abbott. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.